Hey, welcome to Jeremy Snell's recruitment training. If you're looking to deepen your capabilities, if you're seeking to improve your productivity and your performance, this is the channel for you. In every episode, I will unpack practical and tactical things that you can do to help you to think with greater clarity, make better decisions, and ultimately make more money. Feel free to subscribe, feel free to like and to comment. And now let's get on with today's topic.
Hey, welcome to the episode, and this one is all about, it's a subject that I've been thinking about a lot. It's a subject that I think everybody in recruitment should be thinking about a lot, and it's the subject of customers. Now, when you think about who your customers are, I'm sure you can picture customers that you value, customers that without whom your business would be less, customers that you would consider to be your crown jewel accounts, your keepers. And I'm sure as you start to think about the customers you would really like to keep, I'm sure you can think of other customers. Customers who perhaps are a little more difficult or a bit more challenging to deal with. Perhaps customers where the actual cost of delivery is higher because of the increased level of time or resources that is required. Not all customers are born equal, right? So if you can picture what I'm talking about, you can picture your keeper accounts, you can picture your higher energy, maybe lower return accounts. You should be able to start to consider what actually does good look like, and how can I encourage more of my customers to behave like the good ones? Because a lot of the quality of a customer is actually based upon their behaviors with you when they're in that process of hiring, when they're in that process of buying. And then it's also their behaviors in between those moments, the level of accessibility that you have to them when they perceive that there isn't a requirement. You know, there are people out there who are working as hiring managers in companies who choose not to talk to the agencies that they work with when there isn't a vacancies, because in their own mind, why do I need to talk to you when I'm not hiring? Why should we be talking when there isn't a job? So they are more difficult to track down. They're more difficult to foster stronger working relationships with, because really they view these recruitment agencies as being suppliers of a product or suppliers of a service. So their perception is they only need to interact with them when they are in the market for said product or said service. And then there are other businesses out there where the hiring managers are as accessible when they are and when they aren't hiring, because they recognize the value of the working relationship to both of their businesses. And I'm sure as you think about the accounts that you would consider to be your best accounts, your keeper accounts, some of those keeper accounts invest in you financially like they spend, but maybe there isn't as much traction in terms of the relationships that you have with those points of contact, which means that you have a high value account, but you have a high vulnerability client. Does that make sense? The account is spending money with you and is doing so frequently, but the level of vulnerability that you're exposed to, because the depth and quality of relationships is reduced, means that at some point you may find that they go from being a customer to a not customer because somebody else has got their ear. And if you're overly reliant on single points of entry into that account, i.e. the majority of your conversations always takes place with the same one or two people, and especially if those one or two people are what I would call process gatekeepers, like heads of talent, who aren't necessarily making commercial decisions on behalf of the organisation as to the direction that the firm will be going and what they're seeking to achieve commercially, and therefore reviewing the quality of people that they have, the requirements that they may need in the future, and how they're going to structure their business that could have an impact on whom they choose to work with. So I believe it's a really important exercise that at least once per quarter, every recruitment business reviews its customer base, and reviews its customer base to identify who are the key people in this organisation who we know, and how well do they know us. And as we calibrate that and we think about who are the people in this organisation that we know, you might be able to name the CTO of that business, you might be able to name the CMO or the CEO or the EIEIO. That was intended to be a joke. But you may know these people by name who sit on the board, and you may know some of the functional heads or the senior directors and what I would describe as being the decision makers, but how well do they know you? Like if you were to write down a list of, let's say you wrote down a list of the 10 most important people in your network, many of the people that you write down, I'm sure, will turn out to be people within your client base. If we were to turn to those people and ask them to write the same list, like if we were to ask the managing director of your key account, if we were to ask the CTO of your keeper account, who are the 10 most valuable people in your network, would you be on their list? And if you weren't on their list, what do you feel you could be doing now so that in another 3 months you are more likely to be on their list? And we can only really do this if we put meaningful thought into who are all of the organizations that we would consider to be customers. How well do we believe we rank for our level of knownness associated with certain business outcomes with the key people in that business that we would call hiring managers and decision makers and process gatekeepers? And how well do we know them and their goals and their objectives and what they're working on in their position for the next 12 months? Because each of them is on a mission, and it is the sum of all of the missions that those decision makers and hiring managers and process gatekeepers are on that adds up to being the effort the organization is making to achieve its overriding commercial objectives. And if you don't know what each of those players actually has on their agenda in terms of goals, challenges to achieve, and therefore expectations of you, you may find that they start to drift. And you may not see it initially because you still see requirements coming through, you still have work that you are delivering, but they may start to engage with somebody else at a more meaningful level about things that are much further into the future, the things that truly matter to their business. Because transactionally, whoever is filling their jobs at the moment, if it's being done to a fine standard, there isn't really any stresses about you're going to get fired as a supplier, but you may find you get gazumped by somebody who builds a stronger relationship at a deeper level with a more meaningful decision maker or group of decision makers about something which matters to them more, which may be what their company looks like in a year, or maybe their ability to achieve those objectives in 2 years' time. Because every one of these people could be given a mission where the achievement of it helps them to achieve bonus, because the achievement of bonus is the indication that they are moving the organisation in the right direction. So picture this. Picture putting together that list of your customers. Picture identifying all of those decision makers and hiring managers and process gatekeepers and scoring out of 10 how well you feel you are known by those people. And think about that as a business relationship. Like, how well do they know me? And then think about how well do I know them? And it may be that you feel that you know them an 8, but with deeper thought you realise that they know you as a 6, or maybe vice versa. So as each of those people gets a score from 0 to 10 in terms of your perception of your level of knownness with them and your perception of understanding of them to be able to say this is how well I know them, it's those two scores which means that they will end up remembering you at the right moments or giving you greater levels of access to them when they don't perceive there is a need to be hiring, because you are a value proposition to them in their role. The insights that you can share with them help them to be able to achieve their commercial goals and their objectives and to deliver their mission. And as you think about all of those people and you start to think about those scores, and you start to do that by starting with these are my keeper accounts. This is where I have to invest my time first. And then these are my nurture accounts. These are the nurturing accounts that I believe that through consistency of consultancy, consistency of education, consistency of sharing insights, I can nurture their perceptions of me so that I become more valuable. And as I do that, I will get access to more work. And I will help some of those accounts become keeper accounts. And then there may be other accounts where there is a level of volatility that perhaps on the face of it you'd think, well, they're a lot of work, they're a lot of energy. Like, we do make placements there from time to time, but we have to work a lot of jobs to be able to get that converted. We have to put a lot of calories into this system to start to see any form of traction. And some of those may be a cost. Despite the placements that get made, they could be a cost to your business because they are preventing you from being able to work with other accounts who may be more valuable. And as you look at those relationships with those people, and as you start to grade the quality of accounts that you're currently working with, and you create the scoring metrics, you've now got a plan as to what you can do to be able to develop your customer base and to build a fortress around the ones that you really want to keep. Because I promise you, if you're not talking to those senior decision makers and somebody else is, they may be trying to get in at a higher level that could cause compression on you in the future. And for the avoidance of doubt, a customer is someone who's paid you money. And I meet plenty of people who work in recruitment and say, I'm working with my client, and I talk to them about their client and say, how much has this client spent with you? Oh, we've never made a placement there, but they give us quite a lot of jobs and we've arranged a few interviews. So it's not a customer. Like, a customer has paid you money. And in my opinion, a customer is somebody who, when you give them advice, they take heed of your advice and they act on it. And if we can build a portfolio of customers, people who spend money, people who take our advice, people who take action on it, we want to keep them, right? I'd heard a stat that was shared that the typical recruitment agency loses 50% of its customers per year. And I don't interpret that as meaning the agencies get fired. So I don't want you sat there thinking, well, that's not me because we've never been fired by a client. But I think they lose them because they get busy with the next new account. They get busy with other customers. And that customer that they served really well in March, before you know it, April goes by, May goes by, there's been limited levels of contact. The last conversation was, thanks very much for all the work you've done a really sterling effort, we will be continuing to work with you, and it starts to drift. And at some point, what was a customer starts to behave more and more like a prospect. Because as we behave like we forgot them, they start to behave like they forgot us. And we kind of went there first. So as you review your customer base, be really critical with yourself as to what assumptions are we baking into our perceptions of this relationship? How well do we actually know what is going on inside their business today based upon conversations that we may not have had for the last 2 months? And how do we get ourselves back front and centre as being a partner of choice rather than a supplier on a list? Because I would guesstimate, it's a professional guesstimation, right? Having worked with so many agencies, but I would guesstimate the typical recruitment business or recruitment desk could increase profit and gross margin by 30% simply by selling more to existing customers. And by selling more to existing customers, you're strengthening that relationship. You are increasing the level of bond between you and them, particularly if you are networking with more people in that organisation. So I'd recommend that you run an exercise in your business that I would call Project 30. Project 30 is, if over the course of the next 6 months we want to increase the average level of spend per customer by 30%, how are we going to do this? And I would start with that account review. Who are all of the organisations we would consider customers? Who are the people that have spent us money? Who are the ones that actually pay attention to our advice and take heed on it? Who are the ones that we feel we have consistent access to? Who are the ones who treat us like a supplier and we only get access to them when they are hiring? Who are the ones who treat us like a commodity supplier because we don't even get access to the hiring managers at the point that they're actually going out to market to find people? And as you start to grade those customers, you start to look at the relationships that you do and you don't have with the people who you would consider to be decision makers at the top tier, hiring managers who ultimately every day get to enjoy the byproduct of working with you, which is having better quality people in their business. And who are the people who administer that? Who are the people who are the gatekeepers of the process? With whom you have to have good working relationships with if you are going to be trading CVs, influencing interviews. because they could block you just as easily as they facilitate you. And as you identify those people and you give them those scores and you start to think about, right, this person here, I feel my level of knownness with them is currently rocking a 5. And I feel my level of understanding of them in return is a 4. So I now know that they know me a 5 out of 10 and I know them a 4 out of 10. I can start to think about what will I need to do to be able to influence both of those numbers to be able to go up. And maybe there are others where I feel it's a 9. I know them a 9. I know so much about their role, their goals, their objectives, where they're going. We've placed 4 people into their department. I've got total fluency with the structure of what they're doing and what they're seeking to achieve over the next 12 months. That's a 9. But when I think deeply about how well do they know me, I'm not entirely sure they know how I do what I do. They're very impressed with the results that I generate. I don't think I've ever really lifted up the bonnet to show them this is what it actually takes to be able to deliver these results. And maybe I'm trading on the quality of my results with them, and what I'm not doing is establishing greater levels of embeddedness by showing them the workflow, the processes, the systems, the tools, the things that actually create the results. And if you're not doing that, all they can do is to say, hey, you're a great recruiter, you find really good people for me, I don't know how you do it, but they're amazing. And if they have to say, I don't know how you do it, I think you've missed an opportunity to get more embedded. So Project 30 can help in so many places to improve margin, to improve profit, to improve quality of relationship, to improve your own understanding of your business and where you have strengths and where there are opportunities to be able to become more embedded, to build those fortresses around those accounts. And as you start to have more clarity on those things, you can start to make it a non-negotiable part of your working week, to invest time and energy to focus on developing those relationships in a two-way fashion with all of the key stakeholders. Not the principal, not the primary contact, but all of those key stakeholders. Because you've probably experienced this in the same way that other agencies I've worked with have. You have a great trading relationship with a key person in an organisation. It facilitates good quality outcomes for both of you, i.e. you make money and they fill jobs with people who stay. But then that decision maker moves on and your relationship goes with them. And then you're scrambling to be able to get to where you used to be with a new point of contact, who may or may not have the same level of affiliation with you because perhaps they're affiliated with somebody else. And as much as we can track the relationship with the person who moved on, we might find we get a better client where they turn up than the one that we're trying to retain. So I trust you can all visualize the way that I'm describing that. I would recommend creating something which is a visual that you could have on a wall that helps you to be able to look at the game board of your clients and the clusters of people that you have different qualities of relationship with, to start to be able to set the tone and to set the communication plan as to how you're going to be able to maintain the really strong ones, how you're going to develop the ones where there is an opportunity to improve, and how you start to make some judgment calls about some of those accounts that can keep you and your team really busy, but maybe don't produce the level of results that you would like to see in terms of net fee income. If you have any questions about the way that I'm describing any of these things, you know where to find me. I've got a couple of tools that you may be interested in looking at. One which would help you to be able to track the quality of relationships that you build with people in the form of a matrix, and another tool which is a light version of an account development plan that you could start to point at all of your existing customers to come up with your 5-point plan as to what you're going to do to be able to develop more business from them or to be able to retain that position. So if you want copies of those, you know where to find me. As always, any feedback, any thoughts on the things that I share in the podcast is greatly welcome. And other than that, I'll see you on another episode soon.
Hey, thank you for watching. If you want to continue to get access to more high quality training and coaching ideas to help you to stay inspired as a recruiter, make sure that you like, make sure that you subscribe, and check out the description below for relevant links to tools, frameworks, and other ideas to keep you moving forward. and I look forward to seeing you on another one very soon.